All right, we are up to, man. I got to get your guys' input on this one because this is a fight that I just can't even really make up my mind. Still, we got Kelvin Gastelum going up against Ian Heinisch. Is it my man Cody on this one? I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, this comes down to game planning and what kind of fight does Kelvin Gastelum want to have? I mean, when you see in the Israel Adesanya fight, it's a war. It's a fight that's probably 2-2 going into the fifth round. He's got Israel Adesanya, the GOAT at 185 pounds right now, rocked with a head kick. I mean, he's got momentum in his side going into the fifth, and unfortunately loses his soul in that fifth round, dropped multiple times, 10-8 round against him. And then since then, it's the tale of two Kelvins. Like, what does he want to do? He's super hesitant in the Darren Till fight, and then he ends up dropping a decision. And I thought in the Hermanson fight, I mean, he was a little bit reckless, ends up falling right into Jack's hand, gives up the leg lock. What version do we get here? If he fights up to his capabilities, I think he's definitely capable of beating Ian Heinisch. It's just, it depends what the game plan is. One thing about Ian Heinisch is that his takedown defense does not hold up. If you look at, say, he was on Contender Series, right? He got taken down by Justin Sumter. His UFC debut against Cesar Ferreira, he gave up 5 takedowns. Antonio Carlos Jr., he gave up 4 takedowns. Brunson, he got taken down twice. Omari Akhmedov, he got taken down twice. The Jared Mearshart fight, only time in his UFC career and Contender Series career where he did not get taken down, and that's because he knocks out Jared Mearshart in 1 minute and 14 seconds. And then you have not seen him since then. So we're coming off on almost a year-long absence for Ian Heinisch. Again, he's giving up a lot of takedowns. He was improving his striking a lot over at Tiger Muay Thai. You see him in the Mearshart fights, like, oh wow, Heinisch has been working on his striking. But ever since the pandemic, he hasn't been able to get back to Thailand. He's fighting out of Genesis for this camp. I mean, ultimately, this is how I think the fight plays out. Kelvin Gastelum is a slightly better striker. I mean, I wouldn't say slightly. He is a better striker, right? You've seen him go in there with guys like Darren Till, who is, a former title challenger, but you've seen him competitive against Israel Adesanya. You see him competitive against high-level guys, even though he's beaten up all the age legends like the Vitor Belforts, the Ronald Jacare Souzas, the Michael Bispings. They're all former champions or former title challengers or guys of a very high level. Ian Heinisch has been fighting all of these top 25 guys, most of whom are no longer with the company. That's kind of the level he's been operating at. So I think Kelvin Gastelum could win the striking match. But again, it's all about making this an MMA contest. Strike with him long enough to mix in a takedown or two here and there, just to secure these rounds. Heinisch is durable. Heinisch is the natural middleweight, so he'll be a little bit bigger, but he hasn't got the stopping power to knock out Gastelum. And barring Gastelum doing one of these classic performances where he just doesn't really throw anything, and it's a really slow-paced fight, and it could go either way, barring that happening, he's got the skills. He's got the quicker hand speed. He's got the bigger power. He's got the better wrestling. His cardio checks out. I mean, he's been in tons of 5-round fights, scheduled 5-round fights. Apparently he's super motivated, 3-fight losing streak, backs against the wall, doesn't want to get cut clearly. If they're releasing guys like Anthony Pettis, clearly a guy like Kelvin Gastelum's probably not overly safe. And he made a really big ass of himself when Whitaker pulls out and the guy's walking around with a fake belt being like, I'm the champ. It's like, what are you doing, man? And they say it's bad luck to touch the belt. You're not the champ, right? And this guy really did parade himself around like he was the next coming of Christ. And all of a sudden, now he's on 3-fight losing streak and hasn't been looking good. And, it's just kind of been a bit of a downward spiral, but he's still young. I think he's motivated to get back in the win column. And they've given him a very winnable fight here in Ian Heinisch. So it's no disrespect to Heinisch. It's that Kelvin is the better operator. He has the back class. He's competed at the higher level. And I think that this is a good fight for him to get back in the win column. Even though it might not be one of these runaway type performances, it might be a relatively close decision. It'll be one of these ways for him to get back in the win column.
For sure. Guru, who you got?
Yeah, I mean, me personally, this is another fight where I think the line is too wide. I mean, we have Kelvin coming off 3 losses in a row, so he's definitely the one that doesn't have the momentum. I think Heinisch, he has either 2 wins in a row or he only has 1, but it's the big knockout win over Jared Mearshart. And in terms of the fight, though, I do think that Kelvin, he's the better wrestler and he's the better striker. So it's just going to come down to if he drops the ball. I mean, if he allows Heinisch to pressure him and throw more volume and just doesn't let his hands go, like CJ said, and lets him just win on points. But I feel like Kelvin should be able to outstrike Heinisch. He should be able to out-wrestle Heinisch. I think Heinisch, to me, I mean, he's not really super technical. He wins a lot of these fights just because he, super tough. He's athletic. He's definitely like, super strong, durable guy. So he comes forward, he wears on these guys, and he's been fighting a lot of grapplers where he's really good at anti-grappling. Like he'll defend takedowns, shoot submissions off his back. He can get back up to his feet, scramble. And he's been able to tire these guys out and then just kind of beat them down the stretch. And with Kelvin, I mean, it's possible that Kelvin comes in here. I didn't really think that Kelvin looked in that good a shape at the weigh-ins. I mean, to me, he didn't look – so I don't know if he's that motivated or not. So, I mean, I'm not really that confident that Kelvin's going to come in here and look super great. But Ian Heinisch is a durable guy, so I don't know if Kelvin's just going to knock him out. I think it's more likely going to be a decision. And I'm going to side with Kelvin just because I think – he's the better striker and he's the better wrestler, so he should be able to win the striking, hit takedowns, deny the takedowns of Heinisch. But, I mean, if this fight comes down to like a split decision or Heinisch outworks him for 3 rounds, I mean, I'm not going to be that surprised. So I'm going to go with Kelvin. I mean, I think that he's the better fighter. He needs to have a bad performance to lose, but, I mean, we've seen him do it before. So I'm going to go with Kelvin, but not extremely confident.
Locke, who you got?
Yeah, I echo the same thing as Guru in terms of the weigh-in thing, right? Immediately as soon as I saw him, I had to go back and watch his Jack Hermanson weigh-in as well, and he looked the same shape. You know what I mean? Like it seems like at this point in time, when he's so set on being at 185, he's just not doing what needs to be done to truly be comfortable at that weight, right? Like, will he fill out his body to truly be at this weight class? Whereas you're seeing guys like Adesanya, who's moving up to 205, and you see him taking the measures that are required to actually be comfortable at 205 pounds. Same thing with John Jones going up to heavyweight. You see him doing all this weightlifting and trying to get strong and really fill out that body. Whereas Kelvin, it just seems like the complete opposite, where he's just like, I just, I don't have to worry about my diet as much anymore or something like that, right? That just seems to be his approach. But the funny thing when looking through Kelvin Gastelum's record, like, let's just look at his 170 run. Like, since moving up to 185 pounds, 185 pounds, I should say, Johnny Hendricks he beat, Tim Kennedy he beat, Vitor Belfort he beat, Michael Bisping, and Jacare Souza.
Damn.
5 guys that he's beaten. And you're just like, are you kidding me? Like, these guys are clearly all past their prime. Johnny Hendricks post USADA, we know what Johnny Hendricks post USADA is like, right? Complete opposite of what we got pre USADA. So when you just look at those wins alone, you're just like, okay, he's going out there and beating on old timers. And does Ian Heinisch really fall into that category? No. But in terms of talent wise, he doesn't really stack up against the guys that Kelvin Gastelum has been losing to: Israel Adesanya, Darren Till, Jack Hermanson. Chris Weidman in 2017 still had a little bit to offer. I mean, he still had a great wrestling game, had a good submission game, obviously tapping him out later in that fight. Didn't have the greatest, looks in the first couple rounds, but then obviously Kelvin Gastelum starts to fade, and the power and the size and the wrestling, Chris Weidman really starts to catch up to him. Does Heinisch have that really to lean on? I do think that Heinisch will be the stronger guy here, but when it gets into those grappling and those scrambling exchanges, I still think that Kelvin will be a step ahead. I think he'll be able to, land a takedown or end up on top if they're scrambling in one of these weird situations. When it comes down to the boxing and the striking, you got to give the edge to Kelvin Gastelum again, right? A better technical striker on that side of things. Ian Heinisch, I'm sure he wished that he got more time over there in Thailand at Tiger Muay Thai, really trying to refine his game there, because we saw some great things from him in that Gerald Meerschaert fight. But again, that's just one fight, and that's Gerald Meerschaert, who is probably one of the slower guys in the division, and again continues to feed that Khamzat Chimaev train because he got deaded by him in like 15 or 20 seconds, right? So now we get to see Kelvin Gastelum against a guy that, is obviously bigger than him, will probably have the strength advantage. But when we're talking about skill set now, it's probably, closer to the middle of the pack. And the middle of the pack guys are the ones that I think that Kelvin can still beat at 185 pounds, where his skill will overcome the size discrepancy that he's going up against. And this might be another, just a decision victory for Gastelum. Minus 225, though, considering he's coming off a 3-fight skid right now, it's a little bit iffy. I mean, you got to figure out where this guy's confidence level is, where he's truly at mentally, and if he's even been at the gym, right? Like, how often is he going out there to King's MMA and training with these guys and trying to get in those rounds and really try to refine his game, rather than just being like, I can go out there and beat a guy like Ian Heinisch even on my off day, right? You got to question his mentality and if he's actually going to be in it. Being the third from the top on a pay-per-view, hopefully he's motivated to go out there and be like, guys, I'm not done. Like, I still got something left, and I can show you guys that I can replicate the first couple rounds that I had against Israel Adesanya. But we just haven't seen it as of late. So at minus 225, it's a pass on my end. I still think he ends up winning. If we're getting closer to like minus 150 for Gastelum, I'd be a little bit more on board with trying to play him there. I think that's a much better line. But again, Heinisch, he's just been getting away on like grit and like being able to outscramble some of his past opponents like ACJ and Cesar Ferreira. But I don't think he's going to be able to get away with that against a guy like Kelvin Gastelum, who still shows small bright spots. And even though he's just been beating up on old dudes recently, he should be able to go out there and beat a guy like Heinisch. So I'll go with Gastelum, and I think he wins this fight via decision.
I'm on Gastelum as well. Wow, it's been insane for Kelvin Gastelum, which I got to tell you what, man, I am very appreciative of this losing run he's been on, because I have bet against him every step of the way and just been cashing phenomenal underdog spots. So thank you, Kelvin Gastelum. But I'm going to back Kelvin Gastelum in this spot. I mean, this is a guy that took Israel Adesanya, arguably the champion of the division, up from where he should be, because I'm one of those guys that thinks Gastelum gets the diet together, gets the motivation, and make 170, dude. But he's obviously not going to do it. He can't do it. He missed weight so many times, got kicked out of the division, and he's older now. He's never going back. It's not going to happen. I'm going to shut up. I'm going to stop talking about it. But 185, I mean, this guy took it all the way up to gold, like Cody said, walking around with a fake belt, making himself look like a total prick. What are you going to do, right? But, man, it's just been a terrible run, But I do feel like this is a step down in competition. I think Ian Heinisch could win this fight, though. With Kelvin Gastelum, I know he's the more skilled guy here. He should win this fight, but I feel like something is wrong. I don't know if Adesanya mentally broke this guy and taking it to the highest of heights, that championship opportunity, and then to lose that fight. I don't know if it's a motivation thing, a mental thing. I just don't know what it is, but he's just not the same guy. But man, his back is against the wall. He's got to win this fight, or the dude's probably next in line for Bellator. I got Kelvin in this one. I don't see him losing 4 in a row. I don't see him losing to a guy like Ian Heinisch, but man, I did ponder earlier this week, man, Ian Heinisch at better than plus 200 or sitting around that area. Not bad, but Kelvin, man, he's got to get this one done. I think he does. I think he wins a decision.